Get out today, old hag.
Today.
And get rid of all your stuff. It's just in the way at home.
Lisa made a dismissive gesture. As I was getting annoyed, Thomas interrupted.
Listen up. Don't leave a single piece of trash.
My patience finally snapped. I sighed and muttered in response. Okay. After that, I turned my back on the two of them. If you get caught cheating, you should normally apologize. Why are they so unapologetic? And we live together, but they're telling me to leave. Are they kidding? They've been saying only things that are convenient for themselves, but don't they realize I have incriminating evidences against them? Well, if that's the case, I don't mind. I'll enjoy it while I can. I'll prepare for retaliation in the meantime. I headed to my room with a smug smile. My name is Mickey Hedgill. I've been married to Thomas for almost 20 years now. I'm 48 years old, working from home as a designer, and Thomas, who's 2 years older than me, is thriving as a systems engineer. Our son Ned, who was born shortly after we got married, is already 19 years old and a fine college student. You might imagine a happy family when you hear this, but it's not really like that. Recently, Thomas' behavior has been suspicious in many ways. He would sneak out secretly on weekends, and he'd come home very late even on weekdays. Moreover, when his cell phone rings while he's at home, he would never answer it in front of me. I couldn't help but think he was cheating. If he's cheating, then maybe divorce is the only option. Lately, I've been thinking about things like that more and more. Looking back, Thomas's attitude changed a few years ago. It was when Ned was in middle school, and our expenses started to increase. However, Thomas' salary was gradually decreasing. When I asked for the reason, Thomas replied,
The economy is bad, and the company is in tough situation.
There was nothing I could do when he said that. I cut down on our living expenses. But that alone wasn't enough. So I thought about starting a part-time job and wanted to discuss it with Thomas. You know, I'm thinking about getting a part-time job.
Huh, is it because we don't have enough money?
And there's Ned's cram school fees. I confessed to Thomas that our finances were tight. Then Thomas suddenly got angry.
It's because you're wasting money.
I was taken aback by Thomas's behavior. It's true that we've had a few arguments before, but this time, it was completely different from before. Something was off, but I still tried to argue back. I don't waste money.
Then it means you're useless. Seriously, everyone here is so incompetent. They can't do their jobs at the company. I even have to help with sales.
His complaints went on like that. In the end, I gave up on discussing with him. After that, I received a message from a former colleague from the company I used to work for before marriage, who had started his own business. I had quit the company when I got married, more than 10 years ago. There may have been a bit of a gap, but I couldn't let this opportunity pass. I jumped at the chance. And so I started working as a designer from home. Of course, I also informed Thomas about it, but he just nodded. It seemed like he didn't have much interest or didn't really listen to the details. In any case, I definitely reported it. I continued my work with confidence. Then, one weekday afternoon, something unexpected happened. Ned came back home.
I'm home.
What are you doing back at this hour? It was just past noon. At that time, Ned was in middle school. He had classes until the evening, followed by club activities. There was no reason for him to come home at that time.
I told you today was the first day of the midterm exam, didn't I?
I was taken aback. When I looked at the calendar, there was indeed a note about the midterm exams. I forgot. I'll prepare your lunch right away. I quickly started preparing Ned's lunch. Then from behind, I heard Ned's voice.
Mom, were you working?
The
laptop is still out, and there are various documents and stuff.
Ned pointed to the work documents and a laptop I had left on the living room table. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll clean up right away.
No, it can wait. But there's something I want to ask you.
Ned ran to his room. Soon, he came back with a tablet.
I'm making a game. I want to become an engineer like Dad.
Ned showed me his self-made game on the tablet. It might not be as good as commercially available games, but it was quite well done. That's amazing.
I want to go to a technical school. Do you think Dad will approve?
If he sees this, he'll definitely approve. I wholeheartedly supported Ned. However, both my aspirations and Ned's were shattered. Because when Thomas saw Ned's self-made game, he criticized it harshly.
This is nothing. Don't make me laugh.
But
No, it's no good at all. I can make something like this in 10 minutes.
Thomas laughed heartily. I was furious at his attitude. From the perspective of a system engineer like Thomas, Ned's game might be nothing more than child's play. Even if he wanted to offer professional advice, making fun of it was unacceptable. As I was about to voice my complaint, Thomas continued to berate at Ned.
If you have time to do something like this, you should study more.
Think about how you say it. When I intervened, Thomas became annoyed.
What? Do you have a problem with my way of teaching him?
I do. You should encourage our child's independence more.
In the first place, it's the wife's job to educate the child, isn't it? If you were doing it properly, there wouldn't be a problem like this.
Thomas raised his voice. I instinctively held my tongue. There's no point in saying anything to this person, I thought to myself. I needed to help Ned. In the end, I just silently listened to his complaints. I waited for Thomas's anger to subside. And the next day, I said something to Ned when Thomas wasn't around. Ned, I'll buy you a computer so you can study game development.
Really?
Yes, it's fine. If your dad says anything, I'll tell him it's for work. And so I bought a high-end desktop computer with my own money for Ned. Thomas had a reluctant look on his face, but I insisted it was for work. That incident was a beginning, and little by little, my relationship with Thomas became more strained. Of course, divorce was on my mind. But I couldn't easily bring up the topic with Ned in the picture. I continued to have frustrating days filled with uncertainty. On the other hand, Ned was preparing to go to college.
At a college, I can study specialized subjects, and I don't think Dad will object.
Unbeknownst to me, Ned had grown quite smart. If that's the case, maybe divorce is an option. I started thinking along those lines. That's when Ned, who had returned from college, came rushing to me.
Mom, I need to talk to you.
What's wrong, Ned? I stopped working and looked up. Ned looked quite pale in front of me. I became anxious, wondering what had happened. Finally, Ned began to speak hesitantly.
Well, I actually saw Dad cheating.
Dad? Cheating? I asked, and Ned told me the details. This was what he said. It happened a few hours ago. Ned was on his way to college for a lecture, but he received a message from a friend saying that the lecture was canceled. So he went out to town to hang out with his friend. That's when he saw Thomas walking arm in arm with a young woman. He had friends with him, so he pretended not to see, but he couldn't bear it and came back home.
Sorry, if my friends weren't there, I would have confronted Dad on the spot.
It would probably have been impossible to do that. I could understand the pain in Ned's heart. Setting that aside, I already knew about Thomas's infidelity. Thinking back, Thomas had been acting strangely lately. On weekends, he would go out immediately, and even on weekdays, he came home late. When he made phone calls at home, he would speak in hushed tones and hide from me. There was no reason not to suspect him. So a while ago, I had already requested an investigation into Thomas's behavior. I already had the results in my hands. When I told Ned about it, he looked surprised and asked me,
Was that how it settled down? Are you, by any chance, getting a divorce?
Well, the investigation results were pretty damning, so maybe.
I see. If that's what Mom decided, then I won't say anything.
That settled that. That night, I planned to confront Thomas when he came home. However, Thomas didn't come home. He probably realized that he had been seen by Ned. Thomas finally returned a few days later on a Sunday. He brought along a young woman I didn't know. Thinking that this woman might be his affair, I let her speak up first.
Nice to meet you. I'm Lisa Stewart, and I've been seeing Thomas.
Her cheeky greeting irritated me. Thomas then spoke to me.
So, Lisa and I will be living together from now on. I'm divorcing you, so get out.
What's the reason?
Because a man as exceptional as me is better off with a younger woman than an old hag like you.
Thomas said that while grinning. You're talking big, aren't you? I retorted, not hiding my sarcasm. Oh well, that's like a dream come true, I added with a snarky tone. Feeling irritated, Lisa then chimed in and pointed at me.
You're quite audacious for an old hat, aren't you? You think you can live on your own?
I'll manage just fine. I have a job.
Well, then you'd better get divorced right away.
Lisa said that and threw the divorce papers at my feet. I'll make sure to get alimony from both of you. Lisa frowned in response. On the other hand, Thomas grinned smugly. I signed the divorce papers and handed them to Thomas. At that moment, Lisa triumphantly remarked,
Get out of here today, old hat,
"Today."
and make sure to get rid of all your stuff. It's just in the way at home.
Lisa made a dismissive gesture. As I was getting annoyed, Thomas intervened.
All right, don't leave a single piece of trash. Okay.
I finally reached my limit. With a sigh, I mumbled my response. Okay. After that, I turned my back to both of them. If you get caught cheating, most people would at least apologize. Why are they so unapologetic and telling me to leave to let them be the ones living together? It's ridiculous. They've been saying whatever suits them, but don't they realize I have incriminating evidence against them? Well, if that's how it's going to be, so be it. I'll enjoy myself while I can. I'll prepare for my revenge in the meantime. With a satisfied smile, I headed to my room. Before packing up my belongings, I called a waste disposal contractor. I requested a pickup, and then I began to pack my things. After a while, Ned, who had been out, returned home. I could hear Thomas and Ned talking in the living room. But before long, an argument erupted.
You cheated on Mom, right? Shouldn't you apologize to Mom first?
Shut up. It's none of your business.
After that conversation, the living room suddenly became silent. I peeked into the living room, and strangely, Ned was the only one there. Ned, where are they?
They said they're going on a trip together. Seriously, they're such a bunch of jokers.
Ned stamped his foot in frustration. I breathed a sigh of relief. If Thomas wasn't around, I could do what I wanted. I should take this opportunity for some payback. I encouraged myself inwardly. I smiled and spoke to Ned. Ned, I'm going to move out after the divorce. Will you come with me?
Of course.
Great. Start getting ready for the move. And I shared my plan with Ned. Upon hearing it, Ned readily started preparing for the move. In the meantime, the waste disposal contractor arrived. I showed them into the house. Please dispose of all the furniture and appliances in these rooms.
All of them. There are some new items here.
It's okay. I'll buy new ones after I move. I asked them to dispose of the furniture and appliances in my room and Ned's. But I left everything in the living room untouched. Those were shared belongings with Thomas. I didn't want any complaints for getting rid of them. Anyway, I got rid of my stuff and the things I had bought. You can regret it later. Later in the evening, the movers arrived to take our belongings. We hadn't decided on a new place to move to yet, so they would keep our things for a while. By the way, Ned and I moved to a nearby business hotel. We planned to stay there for a while. And a few days passed. During breakfast, I received a call from Thomas. Hello, what's up?
Not what's up. Did you really get rid of all the furniture and appliances?
Huh, of course I did. You're the one who suggested it, right? I replied, and Thomas suddenly became tongue-tied. He mumbled something I couldn't quite understand. Fed up, I scolded Thomas. You told me to get rid of them. Don't complain now.
Well, it's just that.
He seemed somewhat hesitant. As I suspected, he needs that I nodded to myself. The truth is, I had an idea of what Thomas was looking for. Knowing that, I told him I had disposed of everything. As I was contemplating this, Thomas suddenly became a bit more cautious.
Where did you have them disposed?
Why do you want to know now?
No, well, you see, there's something I've been looking for.
I smirked knowingly. Then, just to tease him a bit, I asked. Looking for something? Your fridge, washing machine, and TV. You've got everything you need, right?
No, not that. It's the computer.
Just as I thought, I said to myself inwardly. Thomas was looking for the computer I had given to Ned. Confident in my assessment, I casually responded. The computer, that's the one I gave to Ned. It's also my property, so I was planning to get rid of it.
You didn't get rid of it.
Thomas suddenly raised his voice. He fell for it, I thought. Well, instead of disposing of it, I thought I might as well sell it on a flea market app.
Please, return that computer to me.
It's mine. Why should I return it to you? As I said this, Thomas was left speechless. However, this alone wouldn't be enough for my revenge. So I proposed something else. All right, how about this? Would you like to buy it?
Buy it?
Yes, since I was planning to sell it anyway. If you buy it, I'll sell it to you. At that moment, Thomas' voice became excited.
All right, it's secondhand, so how about $500?
That's way too cheap. Well, how about $10,000?
What? That's ridiculous. Are you trying to rip me off?
Thomas' voice grew louder, clearly irritated. I'm not forcing you to buy it. Besides, why do you want a used computer? I asked him, and he started to panic visibly.
Well,
Why don't you just buy a new computer? That would make more sense.
Fine. $10,000 it is. I'll pay. Sell it to me.
Thinking to myself that I did it, I told him we had a deal. Afterward, Thomas immediately asked me to send him the computer. However, our belongings were with the moving company. I told him to wait until we had finalized our new address. Thomas complained incessantly, but reluctantly agreed. A few days later, my new residence was finally decided. With Ned's help, I moved into the new place. Shortly after the move, Thomas transferred the money for the computer. I handed that money to Ned and said, "Ned, use this money to start living on your own." I thought it was the perfect opportunity for him. Ned began living in an apartment near his college. Finally, I sent the computer to Thomas' house. However, I removed the external hard drive. I sent it to Thomas's workplace. A letter to his boss was attached. Soon enough, I received a call from Thomas' boss. I was instructed to visit the company on the specified date. At Thomas' workplace, I introduced myself at the reception desk and waited until I was eventually met by a man slightly older than myself.
Nice to meet you. I'm Nelson. You're Thomas' ex-wife you sent the letter, right?
Yes, that's right. Thank you for having me.
For now, please come to my office.
I followed Nelson's lead. We soon arrived at his office. When I entered, Thomas was sitting on the sofa with a serious expression.
Mickey, what are you doing here?
Thomas stood up abruptly. To get back at you. I said that with a sly smile, making him turn pale. Nelson then intervened.
Let's get started, shall we?
Thomas' complexion changed at Nelson's words. With beads of sweat forming on his forehead, he reluctantly sat back down on the sofa.
First, I'd like to hear from you, Thomas. What's going on here?
Nelson placed an external hard drive on the table. It was the one I had sent to him. Thomas had been avoiding eye contact, and when asked, he stammered.
I have no idea.
But this was sent by your ex-wife, and it contains our customer data.
Nelson stated firmly, giving Thomas a stern look. Thomas began to make excuses.
I think some work-related data got mixed up.
We strictly prohibit taking out customer data, don't we? Yes, it was just a mistake. Well,
In truth, he could have been honest about it. I thought to myself, silently amused. This incident happened shortly before Thomas and I got divorced. There had been something strange about his behavior. One day, when I returned from shopping, I found Thomas sitting in front of Ned's computer for some reason. The computer was in the living room. Of course, it was because I wanted to use it. But there was no reason for Thomas to use it. He had his own in his room. I felt suspicious and watched Thomas from a distance. Then I saw him do something to the computer and shut it down. I pretended not to know and checked the contents of the computer the next day. I discovered data that I didn't recognize on the external hard drive. It appeared to be some kind of database. I had a hunch. That sneaky Thomas took company data and used someone else's computer as a hiding place. How despicable. Shortly after that, we decided to divorce. That's why I took the computer. I wonder if Thomas didn't expect me to get rid of it. I pondered to myself. It seemed like Thomas had noticed that Ned had been using it, so he might have anticipated that I would leave it behind. In any case, Thomas seemed to be filled with regret. He had a face that looked like he was about to cry when I looked at him.
what's going on? Spit it out.
I'm really sorry.
Finally, Thomas admitted his guilt. Afterward, Thomas received a severe scolding from Nelson. Then Nelson said,
Taking out company data is either theft or a violation of the antitrust laws.
What? No way.
I'm going to report you.
As soon as Nelson said that, Thomas burst into tears. He immediately knelt down and apologized to Nelson.
I'm so sorry. Please forgive me.
No, I won't. You'll be held both criminally and civilly accountable.
This can't be. Oh.
Thomas broke down in tears on the spot. Seeing Thomas crying so helplessly, I couldn't help but laugh inwardly. Serves you right for doing something stupid. You got what you deserved. I thought to myself, I did hope I could get back at him for cheating on me. As I was thinking that, suddenly, we heard a knock on the door, followed by a woman's voice.
May I come in?
Sure, come in. That's a familiar voice. I thought to myself. Then the door swung open.
Good afternoon.
Oh. The moment I saw the woman who entered, I couldn't help but exclaim. The woman looked at me simultaneously. Then she screamed.
What? Why are you here?
It was Lisa. Well, there were some things, and…
Shut up. This isn't a place for someone like you.
After Lisa said that, she hurriedly covered her mouth. She noticed Nelson, who had a very red face. Nelson gestured for Lisa to sit down. She reluctantly took a seat where Thomas had been sitting. After that, Nelson asked her a question.
By the way, Lisa, I heard you're planning to start your own business. Is that right?
Well, yes.
Is it in the same industry as ours?
Nelson gave her a stern gaze. Feeling pressured, Lisa started to stammer in her response. Soon, Nelson's conversation got to the point.
You are also responsible for managing customer data, right? I wonder if everything would be all right.
Well, what do you mean?
Lisa was sweating nervously. That's when I figured it out. These two are in cahoots. They were planning to steal customer data together, I realized inwardly. In essence, here's what was happening. Thomas and Lisa were planning to secretly take the company's customer data. Based on that data, Lisa was going to start her independent business first. And then Thomas would join her, and they would work together. Once I knew the answer, it wasn't interesting at all. They tried to rob Peter to pay Paul. It's just plain ridiculous. I sighed. The conversation continued. Nelson was questioning Lisa.
I had my subordinates investigate, and we confirmed the leak on our end as well.
Well, you see.
It seems like you're involved in this, aren't you?
Upon Nelson's inquiry, Lisa hung her head. But she quickly raised her face and started to make excuses.
No, that's not true. This was his doing.
As she began to say that, Thomas became irritated. He stood up swiftly and started scolding Lisa.
Are you trying to blame me for this? You were the one who brought it up first.
What? I don't know anything about it. You did it on your own.
What are you talking about? It was your idea in the first place because you wanted to marry me.
I was exasperated by their pointless exchange. So I took some documents out of my bag and placed them on the table. And I told Thomas and Lisa, who were arguing with each other, I investigated your infidelity, but the woman on the other side already has a boyfriend.
What?
Thomas hastily picked up the documents on the table. Attached to them were photos of Lisa holding hands with another man.
Lisa, what is the meaning of this?
It's none of your business.
Shut up! Did you deceive me?
Thomas raised his voice in anger. I couldn't help but mutter quietly. Seems like you prefer a younger man over an old guy like him. Thomas suddenly looked embarrassed, as if he remembered what he had said to me.
Well, anyway, be prepared to take responsibility.
Wait a minute.
This is a crime. Save your excuses for the police station.
Lisa was rendered speechless by Nelson's stern reprimand. Afterward, the company pressed charges against Thomas and Lisa. Immediately after that, The two of them were arrested on charges of theft, among others. Furthermore, the company also filed a civil lawsuit for damages against them. Of course, Lisa's plans to become independent fell apart. At the same time, Lisa's boyfriend disappeared as well. Thomas and Lisa, facing charges of theft and violation of the antitrust laws, are now desperately making excuses in court. But I don't think their excuses will hold up. It will be interesting to see how the trial unfolds. Well, even if they end up only having to pay fines, I doubt they can afford it. I'm just relieved they paid me the alimony beforehand. By the way, I'm enjoying my life as a single person now. My design work is going well, and my income is stable. It seems that Ned has also found himself a girlfriend, so there are many enjoyable things to look forward to. Eventually, life may become hectic when grandchildren come into the picture. So for now, I plan to enjoy a peaceful life.